So depending on when you're watching this, you might be wondering why I'm wearing a Grinch sweatshirt. Well, two things. Shout out Grinch. Love the Grinch. My family's a big Grinch people, and so we just love watching the movies every year, and it's just one of our traditions. But I am making some of these videos during the holiday season, so that's why. So I'm still in holiday food, pajama mode, just all day long. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Welcome back. It's the next episode of my guitar story, and in this episode, we're going to be taking a look at my Strandberg Plini edition. Okay, I know what you're thinking. I'm sure you're looking at this and you're like, Eli, what is wrong with this guitar? It's missing a head. So yes, there are guitars that do not have your regular headstock and tuners in the right spot. So I'll quickly go over just the layout for those that are not familiar, but this is a Strandberg, and so that is the brand, and they make these ergonomic guitars. So everything from the materials to the carve to the neck is just meant to be more ergonomic for the player, leading you to play longer, play better, that sort of thing. This one specifically is a signature model for the artist Plini. If you're not familiar with Plini, he is an amazing guitarist, super technical, super melodic. I love his playing. And so that's his, if you look at the 12th fret there, that is his logo. But real quick, let's go over the specs. So the body is a swamp ash with, and probably one of my favorite parts about it is this Blackwood Australian top. So hopefully you can see that it's kind of split between the body and then the top that comes on it. And so that's an Australian Blackwood, and that's due because Plini, the artist, is Australian. Fan frets, 24, and an ebony fretboard with stainless steel frets. Love them. And one of the coolest part actually is, you know, the dot inlays on the guitar that lets you know you're on the 3rd fret, 5th fret. They're actually glow in the dark. So on a dark stage, that really helps out a lot. 2 humbuckers and their voice to, again, it's a signature guitar, so to Plini's liking. 3-way switch and only 1 knob. So one of the cool things is that Plini said that he doesn't really use his tone knob, and on stage he would be bumping it and all of a sudden his guitar would get bright and dark on other guitars. And so when he got a chance to make his own model, he just said, no tone knob, master volume, that's it. No headstock. So the tuners, if you're wondering, are at the back. So instead of being a traditional guitar where you'll take it and tune it at the top, you'll just take it and tune it at the back. The neck has a pretty unique design. I won't go into just all the detail about it, but it's called the Enduro neck. But it's a different shape. It's really hard to explain over camera, but just know compared to like a normal guitar that you might be used to seeing, it does have a different shape that takes some getting used to, which I'll get into a little bit. But yeah, I think that's it as far as the major specs. Now, the next question you might be asking is, Eli, why did you get this guitar? It is very different from your other guitars, and that's true. I will just flat out say I am not a prog player, so that is the genre Plini plays. I am not a hard metal guy or a riff guy or a prog. I'm just nowhere near that technical or good, in my opinion, to play some of those genres. It doesn't mean I don't like the music. I love the music. Again, I love the player Plini and what he does. I had been, this one I had been eyeing for a while, just as I started getting into different genres of music, prog being one of them, which my thing is kind of weird, right, being in the worship space, but I love all music. I just fell in love with Plini's playing and what he was doing. Now, don't worry, I did not get this guitar and think, oh, I'm gonna be able to play like him, not at all. But I was looking for something more modern, and so when I think of a modern guitar, modern specs, you know, you kind of, if you've paid attention to the scene, it's, you know, your Fenders, your Tellys, your Strats, your Les Pauls, those are kind of the old school guitars, but you have a lot more things nowadays that kind of look like this, where either they're made more ergonomic or they're just made in differently, just bring different sounds, different things than your traditional guitar. So I was looking for something more modern, and just Strandberg, the brand, just came out on top. Let me say, I did not need his signature model. I didn't necessarily want the signature model when I was looking at Strandbergs, but I really liked the natural finish. Could be at the time there wasn't a lot of options that interested me from Strandberg. Of course, that was several years ago. Their inventory has certainly expanded to include more things. But at the time, I just really wanted this natural finish. I was like, wow, I really like that look. But it just so happens they only did this finish specifically for him. So it was either you get the signature model or you don't get this. You know, you'd have to choose a white or a blue or whatever other colors they had. I went ahead and got it. Doesn't hurt me at all because again, I like the artist as well. In my last video, I talked about the Duesenberg, that at this point in my playing, I really felt I had what I needed. And so everything else that was just been coming after, it's just been more of a want. And so the Duesenberg was that. I was really loving that guitar, really wanted it. When the Strandberg came, it was the same thing. You know, I wasn't in need of anything, but I was just, the next year came and I talked about just my personal goals were just like every year to get one guitar if I could, if it made sense. And so this was just the next one that came about. And it is a wide departure from what I normally play. Let me quickly talk about some of the things I like about it, some of the things I don't like about it. What I like about it, just about everything. It feels different than from my other guitars. It feels really fast and smooth to play. It is very well done. I think it does hit the goal of being ergonomic to play. So if you're familiar with guitar playing, you have this cut right here where you play it normal and you play, right? Well, it also has this cut right here that allows you to put it on your thigh or leg, whether it's left or right, and really kind of play in a more classical position. So that's really nice because this is a very small guitar. So this is the kind of guitar you can take to your couch and just is easy to play, not cumbersome compared to something else. So having those options with the cuts to just kind of place it where I need to and the way I want to just motivates me more to pick it up and play. And that's the whole goal, right? I also do not use my tone knob a lot, so I have not been missing not having a tone knob. You know, if I need to make some tonal changes, I'm messing with my pedals, whether that's the amp or the drives or whatever it may be. So for me, only having the volume is actually a plus because I just turn it, it's either on or off, right? And I just either at 10 or 0. Okay, some of the things I don't like, and this is just personal, has nothing to do with the design of guitar, but the tuning. For as long as I've had this, I just cannot get used to tuning it. Now I can tune it just fine, and the great thing about this guitar is it's so well made that usually I tune it once for the day and it just stays in tune. And it might stay in tune for days before I have to tune it again. That is not an exaggeration. But I just, tuning with my right hand this way as opposed to here, it's probably just because all my other guitars are this way. And so when I have to switch to this guitar and tune that way, I just feel out of place. Another thing that's not my favorite is probably the pickups. And let me explain, because they are great pickups, but as you probably know by now, my main genre is worship. And so there are certain tones and sounds that I'm going for that in my opinion, these pickups don't quite hit or just are maybe too much. So these are probably some of the hottest pickups I have ever played. It's definitely in my collection. They're really hot. So that usually means that whatever settings I have on my board, it's pushed that much harder just by switching to this guitar because of those pickups. There is a certain compression to them that also I don't find is usually what I'm going for in the worship context. But again, that's personal. I think if you're doing what Plini's doing, these are great. These are perfect. He plays with a lot more gain than I do. And so I'm sure that's why he voiced them the way that he did. So that's not a knock on the pickups. The pickups are fantastic. I love the clarity. I love the tones you can get out of this thing. So usually when I'm going for something in the worship context, this is probably not the first guitar I go to because of what I explained. But again, that's not a knock on the pickups themselves. That's just a personal preference of what I'm trying to achieve in that context. Now, I'm a firm believer that the aesthetics alone don't make you a better guitar player or worse guitar player. I think in music, if it sounds good, it is good. And that's usually the only rule I follow, right? I know when you look at this, and I'm sure and actually people have commented on me about it, that doesn't really have the aesthetic for the context that I play in the most, being worship. Now, I have played it in services. I have recorded worship things with it. It does make for an awesome riff guitar, and that's actually one of the things I think about. When I think about a riff or something heavier, then this guitar is the one that comes to mind first of all, just because for me, it does that sound really well. I have had that commentary that usually this is probably not the look we're going for. And I get that, especially if you're a video producer or something and you're trying to shape a service or a video or a recording to a certain look. totally get it. So it's probably why, if you've seen any of my videos, this one does not make a lot of an appearance if it's a worship context. If it's me just playing or noodling around or wanting to do something, you know, differently, I play this one a lot. So don't mistake me for that. I do play this guitar a lot. It's just probably not the one I play in worship a lot. Just this week, I had someone comment on one of my videos that he loved my playing, so thank you for checking out the video, for the compliments, but he had wished I had done it on a different guitar. So I totally get it. The look is not for everybody, and the aesthetics might not be something that are pleasing to you, but we all have our own opinions on things. Now, I do use this guitar a lot for drafting purposes, and what I mean by that is, if I'm not sure exactly what sound I'm going for, let's say I'm recording or trying to come up with a part or something like that, just because of the light nature of this, I mean, and it is super light. I wish I could give it to you to hold so you can understand, but I will grab this one to just lay down some draft tracks on, you know, some ideas I may have and things like that. So it is pretty useful because since it is so much smaller, if I'm going to a friend's house and we're recording, doing things like that, this is a lot easier to carry, and the bag that I have for it, it's the one that comes with it, is a lot easier to carry. So it does make for a very mobile guitar and just easy to pick up and go, whether you're on the couch, in a chair, or whatever, going someone else's house. I will say this is probably the guitar that travels the best to me. Now, in my videos, I've been talking about not just my guitar story, of course, but just kind of the state of church. But this one, I don't think it changes from my last video with the Duesenberg. I think the state of church things that I explained in there are still the same around this time. You know, there's no real memory compared to some of my other guitars that I associate this one with. It truly was, you know, a new year had come. I had been influenced by Plini just in his playing. I was looking for something modern, so looking for something just different. You know, I think that's one of the best things about guitar is that we could have the same gear, but we'll sound completely different. But also it's true that we could have completely different gear and still sound good and different and all that stuff. So, you know, I'm not bothered by what the status quo is or what the standard is or things like that. I certainly do succumb to that, as any person does, but I do like branching outside the box. And so I don't know a lot of people in the worship context that use guitars like these, but I know there's a few, and you know, maybe I'll be one of them as I continue to keep playing and keep bringing this one in rotation and stuff like that. But as of right now, it's more of a personal guitar. I love it when I'm home. I love looking at it. I love playing it. I love picking it up. It just motivates me to play. And I think having something like that around you is just quintessential to keeping you playing and just keeping you inspired and just keeping you motivated, you know, and certainly on days when you don't feel like playing. So I think that's really it. There's not much else to say about this guitar. I love it. It's not perfect in my opinion, but no guitar will ever be. But it does do a lot of things really well, and some of the negatives for me are just little personal things that are just my biasy and just things that I'm not used to. Even still being an owner of this guitar for several years, you know, just things that, because I play my other guitars more, like I said, I just don't get quite used to it. If you're interested in this kind of thing, you know, let me know in the comments, and certainly if it's a Strandberg is something that you have been interested in, I can certainly give you more of my thoughts, because it is not a common guitar. I totally get that. You know, I think, at least in my town, I don't think I've ever seen another one in person. And actually, that was a risk when I was buying this, is I was hoping, you know, I could go to a store, not just your bigger boxes like Guitar Center, but we have some local music stores. I was hoping maybe one of them, you know, had one of them in stock that I could try out, but they didn't. So as far as I know, there's not many, if at all, other players in my town that use these kind of guitars. So certainly every time I've taken it out, I get the questions of, what is that? And, you know, I go through the whole explanation of what it is, what Strandberg is, what is it, you know, what ergonomic features does it have, that kind of thing. So it is always a good conversation piece. I think one of the funniest comments I've ever gotten from someone is that it looks like a puzzle piece. Yeah, I can see that.